I play Leona Kaiser versus what?
Yeah, what were you against? Do you remember?
No, I don't remember actually.
Okay. So we started the Doran's blade, which is standard. Sometimes if you're into like really aggressive bot lanes, Doran's shield, even though it delays your evolutions, is still very good. Right, so one thing you also want to try and avoid here is stacking and standing in the same place at the kind of start. Because what you could have done here is you could have walked to the spot where this Viega was and then just pinged him to go into mid lane. Because right now what could happen is if the enemies kind of walk around here and edge this wall like this, they can basically burn his flash or actually get some damage off on him from a kind of mid invade. So just try and be wary of that and maybe try and move as kind of that's happening. But okay, so shame it's okay. Okay, so this is fine. Leash till, yep. So you're playing into the Samira and Pike. So what were your preconceptions going into this lane? What did you have to? What were you considering towards how this matchup plays out?
Enemies are pretty good at level 2. We are pretty good at level 3. And level 1 is like, if he get a hook off, then he's of course good, but I got 10 belts, I stunned Samira.
Okay. So yeah, so they're basically playing a kill lane, whereas you're not really. Now, sometimes Leona with Kaisa isn't as good because sometimes Leona wants to roam off, especially this game, but this is fine. So we played this first wave, okay. Okay, so this was not really worth trading like for there and taking damage. You walked up way past your minion line, so this is kind of a very common mistake that happens a lot, especially when you kind of play these low range ADCs. Like walking up past your minion line here is very, very risky just in general. And it's something that you kind of want to avoid because if say you try and get trade off, some of your casters won't necessarily hit them, whereas you'll actually take aggro from theirs. So you end up subconsciously forcing the wave in just because you've walked up too far. So this is just something to be very, very careful of because that one auto attack isn't really going to mean anything, especially when it's on a Pike and he's going to back out of the lane and heal back up anyway because there's grey health. So your damage isn't actually sticking, whereas theirs will a little bit more. If you can get damage on the Samira, great, but alright, so see, we've ended up in a position now where our wave is huge, which is okay because it's gonna actually stop. So what were you looking to do here? What was your purpose of having the wave in this location? Do you remember? Or
Yeah, to hard off the next one.
okay.
Yeah.
So you can what? What are you gonna do after you've pushed this next wave in?
Then I can roam, I can cheat, I can do stuff.
Yeah, now the only kind of that is correct. I mean, you could potentially get a cheater off. Now, one of the biggest things here though is if you're looking to get a cheater off, you're getting aggression in the wrong place. Because you're basically focusing this Pike to push this wave in, like there's no point, you're looking to cheater anyway. If say they try and return some damage on you, it won't matter because you get a recall timing that they don't. So you can basically get back to base, come back, and nothing will have changed. They wouldn't have actually been able to match that because there's a cannon. So actually aggressing the Pike here when the wave is in this position, your main goal should be to get this hard pushed in. Now I don't know who their jungler was, but you've also got the threat in maybe 20 to 30 seconds they're going to be here. So this is where you kind of want to be using everything on the wave, even your W on the cannon back here. Because what's going to happen now is you're going to be very slow to actually reset. I mean, it should still work, right? You still get a cheater off. Oh no, you don't here. Okay. I mean, you got a defensive ward. That's the next best thing. I mean, we could have gone back and got a cull, which would have been pretty useful. Or we could have even just back to got a longsword. Because now we're still in this position now where the wave is kind of dangerous for us. I'm not actually sure who the jungler is still. Okay. So this is another thing actually. So, do you have a full-size keyboard?
Yes.
Okay. So one of the things that you do here, and I think this might be a common thing, is you actually use your mouse to look over what's happening here. So do you use your F keys at all, or do you not, or?
Since I mainly coach, not often.
Okay.
When I was like semi-pro player, I always use FPs.
Yeah.
It's not a habit anymore.
Okay.
I have
So
to fix it.
yeah, I would probably say get back into that kind of habit, just because F keys are a game changer, and it's not just for looking at moments like this. It's so that you can look over the rest of the map at times when you'll say when you put an auto attack out and you're safe while you're waiting for that next auto, you can F key stuff like that. So it gains you a lot more information. But this is okay now. So one of the big things here, though, what do you think is going to happen here? Now, what do you think is the big mistake here? So, right now, this top scuttle has just been fought over, and this bottom scuttle is still available, and the enemy jungler knows that Vega is top, right? So, what do you think is the big issue here?
Enemy got like a stack wave.
Yeah, so that's not really a mistake. I mean, that's fine. Like, having a stack wave, that's just natural. Now, one of the problems here, though, is that we're not adhering to the push and pull rules. So, if I said, say, the push and pull rule, have you ever gone over that concept, or? No? Okay. So, the push and pull rule is as simple as if the wave is pulling into you, what do you want to look to do in that situation? If the wave's pulling in. So, I mean, in terms of just your overall lane state, if we isolate this lane, if the wave is ever pulling into you, then one of the worst things we can kind of do is look to, say, go for a trade or do something kind of crazy, because right here, the enemy jungler is going to be coming towards the bottom side of the jungle next. And if we push this wave, we're just going to give them the potential to either freeze, or we're going to end up spending too much of our resources on crashing that wave that we're never going to be able to defend ourselves against a jungle gank. So one of the things we want to kind of do is adhere to, if the wave is pulling into us and you know that there's nothing that they can do to stop that wave pulling into us, then we can just sit back. We can stay within XP range, so we can stay back here if we need to, just for safety against the pike. We can sit behind our casters and just stay for XP. If we can walk up and last hit a minion for a little bit of gold, great, but we never want to put ourselves in a position where there's a wave pulling into us and we're taking big trades. Because then what's going to happen is if that trade goes wrong, they're going to crash a big wave into us, and then that opens up dive opportunities. And yeah, so the opposite is if the wave is pushing, then you want to basically look to be as aggressive as possible, and you want to punish them for if they walk out of kind of out of place. Now, this seems like it's kind of a simple concept, but kind of adhering to how the lane is meant to be played out in each moment is actually a really, really important skill, purely because you can put yourself, especially as an ADC, where your goal early is to not die, you can put yourself in very comfortable positions, in very safe positions, so that you can get to your point where you scale. Now, this is very important on champions like Kaisa, because later on into the game, if Samira doesn't get any kills early, you're just going to do infinitely more than her. Your objective control is way faster, your skirmishes are way better, you've got more mobility. So these are the kind of things in your laning phase that you have to kind of work towards, and it makes yourself safer. So even see these autos, they're not ready to last hit yet. Now, obviously, you will get trolled by your support sometimes, but we're actually in a position now where we're kind of vulnerable when we didn't have to be. So we might actually get ganked here by the Zac, who is... Okay. Okay, yeah, Zac didn't want to commit.
My purpose was not to shove the wave, my purpose was to trim the wave, that the enemy don't get a free weak. This was my idea.
That's okay. If the wave is like super massive, then that's fair. But in those situations like here, the wave isn't ridiculously big. It will push back into us because they've got a lot more casters, but the wave's not big enough to trim it right there. When you also do want to trim, what you want to try and do is wait until it gets to about this halfway point and then trim it there. Because if you're trying to trim it in this situation, they can basically just jump on you. But overall, like the thought process is good, so that's fine. So here we are vulnerable. So here, see how I think we survive, but so now we're flashless in a lane where we're already our power balance is already at different points, right? Like Kaisa can skirmish into champions that need scale in bot lane, but at the same time into other champions that are very strong early, like things such as, you know, like your Samiras, your Lucians, your Tristanas, and she gets quite a lot of trouble. So you want to basically make sure that you're staying as safe as possible during this phase. Otherwise, situations like this end up panning out just because we haven't really thought of our waves in advance. So one of the biggest skills that you can actually do when you're playing in a lane is actually think of your waves in advance rather than kind of in the moment, because a lot of players do this even at kind of the highest elos, where they'll try and push a wave that's going to be very hard to push, or they'll put themselves in a very bad situation for no good reason. Like you can see players, even like Chovy for example, like you can see things like this happening in even his gameplay when you look at his pro view. Sometimes it's a very common thing even amongst the highest elo players. So let's see what happens from here. Okay, so Leona walks in the biggest kind of death valley that you should never walk in. Okay, so Viego's near, but they didn't actually get reset off, so... Okay, so one of the things you want to actually just be looking for here is to just force this wave in and reset. Because the fact that it's now bouncing off your turret, again, this is kind of the push-pull rule again. Now it's pushing in, so you just want to lead the minions in whilst also having a scrap at them and see how it goes. Okay, so this was a very risky way to walk. Okay. Yeah, so this was just kind of all-round risky. Now, why do you think this is a really, really bad time to fight? The answer is in this frame.
Zach is bot lane, and the wave is like big.
Yeah, so Zach is bot lane, and the wave is also kind of stacked. So the problem you have now is you actually have control over the lane, which is good. You want control of the lane here. So right here, you should just leave them to kind of go do whatever they want to do, and instead you keep this control in the lane and get this forced in. The kind of problem is now, because you've gone for a fight where this wave is quite big, now she could just freeze the wave. And she could reset on a freeze, come back, and then your lane is very, very hard to play in then. Plus there, the pike could have also just jumped on you instantly, and... So, yeah, this was kind of a mistake from the way that you're playing your lane. And this kind of a very important thing, especially in solo queue, is obviously in competitive, this would never happen. Because you'd say, my wave is big, don't fight, okay, great. Now, the problem is in solo queue, you don't have that control. So you just have to make sure that all the variables that you can impact are solid. So if your wave is big, fundamentally, you want to keep playing towards that big wave and stuff like that. So it comes down to risk versus reward, really. And if you said you knew that Zach was bot as well, then the risk is actually way too big. It's way too high variance, which is what you kind of want to restrict. Because the thing is with this lane as well, Samira is on kind of a timer, where if she doesn't do as much as she should do when she's strong, she's going to get to a point she's going to be way less effective, where you're not really about that. You can, ideally, just keep playing the lanes in and out naturally, and you can basically just win the game off that a lot of the times with Kaisa. But so, we get a plate here. So this is okay as long as you don't touch this wave. Okay, so this is fine. So now this wave is coming back into us, so again, we're in control of this laning phase. This is a good ward, just in case they dive. And this is obviously fine to take because Viego's top lane anyway. So by the time he actually clears back into bot lane, it'll be respawned. So okay. Farming in the tower's fine. We could have also used W there, don't be afraid. Like, you've got plenty of mana. Using W to get one minion, it's no big deal. One of the things I do notice as well, though, your clicks are very, very slow. You get moments where you speed up with your clicks, and then there's points where you're quite slow. Like here as well.
Yeah, I'm washed up boomer.
Don't worry about it, I'm the same. Like, I watched my gameplay from like a year or two back, and I'm like, holy. It's these things, like, obviously, I mean, I know what it's like being a coach as well. Like, your time to play is actually a lot more restricted because you're coaching. So you do kind of get lazy on some things. So it's just a case of sometimes you have to go, okay,
Absolutely.
I realize I'm being lazy. Okay, I'll do it anyway.
Yeah.
But so here again, this is a really good position for you. Here we don't have to play as scared either. So this is where we don't need to be as scared because we're actually level 6 to a 5.
Yeah, but I was scared of the sec.
Yeah.
Because.
So this is the thing.
Sec is bot side.
Yeah, I mean, well, this is the thing. Like, in theory, the Zac shouldn't be bot side because there's nothing for him to get bot side, and the wave is in a bad spot here. So he shouldn't be bot side. He should be going towards his Herald, but you never know in his Elos.
Yeah, and his spots are clear spots. His clears right now bot side. That's why I was like thinking these bot sides.
Okay.
And I don't remember correctly if
So this actually goes well. The only thing I want to first pick up on is the way you throw your W here. One of the worst things you can do with skill shots is throw them reactively. Now, what I mean by this is she was basically here and you threw it directly at her, right? I mean, to that extent. Now, the problem is with throwing a skill shot like that is she then ends up in a position where in order for her to get away from the skill shot, she's just walking in the exact direction that she would have gone to anyway. Whereas if we would have kind of thrown it towards where she needs to walk to, she either has the option to either step back and dodge the damage. So if she steps back, we keep her in a position where we do more damage, or it's to just tank the damage and hope for the best. But either way, you kill her. Now, you do still kill her anyway, but it's still important that we pick up on these things, even though they are little, just to... For clarification's sake. Okay, so we get a double here. This is good. And now we just insta-push.
Yeah, it was down.
Yeah, this guy is completely griefing.
Yeah, but I don't know why I didn't took the fight there.
Yeah, you should just ult it straight away. Just ult on top of him.
I moved behind.
Yeah. So this was just really bad in terms of positioning.
Yeah. I was scared because of the mid laner, but I got everything up. I should fight instant second.
Yeah. Okay, so this is good that we don't overgreed for plates. Okay. So we went with Kraken. Now, why did we go with Kraken Slayer here?
I love the Gala builds.
The what? Sorry.
Gala build is like you rush Kraken into double longswords. I'm testing it actually if it's so good because Gala played on MSI.
Yeah. Okay. So.
Into PD.
Okay, Kraken straight into PD. I mean, this game, I guess it's not bad. Who is the top again? Jace. Yeah. I guess you can get away with it here because the thing is, you don't really need Serpent's Fang.
Yeah, and I tested. It's good if you go like early on, like double, I say, like the Q rush evolve. That's really good on Kaiser, but
Yeah.
it's like a test. I guess it's like in Zuluku. I should go rated. It's way better in Zuluku, but
I mean, yes. The thing is, obviously,
yeah.
with Serrated is because, you know, it attacks their base armor. Like, you know, it's very, very good until they build resistances. So on ADCs, you're not going to be doing that for a long time, so you get a massive amount of pressure in your laning phase. Now, the only other thing that I'm thinking this game is maybe this was actually a Gale Force game. Because the amount of stuff you have to dodge this game is crazy big. You've got to dodge the Zac, you've got to dodge the accelerated gate Q off the Jace, you've got to dodge the Pike, because specifically as ult. So I think Gale Force here would have provided a massive amount of value. Because, I mean, Kaisa can already somewhat deal with tanks because she's so mixed damage, but obviously Lord Doms is busted anyway, so you don't really need to worry as much, I don't think. I don't think it's going to change too much in this game, I just think maybe the added safety would have benefited you more. So this was a good roam. Okay.
Oh no, I remember.
Okay, yeah, this is... You die here, right?
No, no,
Oh.
no, no, no.
Oh, God.
Oh shit.
Oh,
I
God.
remember.
Oh. I mean, imagine if you had Gale Force there, though. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, you know?
Yeah.
But no, I mean, that was... Yeah, that was...
If I go the Kraken build, you can't go Gale Force. Because to go PD, Kraken to get like on second item E evolve. That's why you go Kraken to PD. If you go Gale Force, you need level. I guess it was 11 or 13. I guess it was 11. You need 11 for E evolve. That's why you go PD on Kraken Slayer to get your E evolve.
I mean, PD is also good with Kraken Slayer too because the objective of having PD is to pump as much damage into one person as you can. That's kind of why it's so good on things like Jinx too. So you know it does help a lot. Right, so okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unlucky, but
No,
you
it
killed
was
Zac
not
here,
wrong.
right?
It was a really bad play because I made my passive wrong.
Okay, so it still worked out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's unlucky.
Passive was not on point. I did my passive, then I Q instead of Q into passive.
Okay.
He would be dead. I misplayed it on mechanics there.
I mean, still, so it still worked out. I mean, we're very big now, but I want to see what we actually do with this lead. Okay. Okay, so we reset. Okay, unfortunate jump timing. So here we're not making any decisions, and that's kind of doing us over. So right here, like in these fights, like we need to make a decision of what we're gonna do straight away. And this is kind of the biggest problem. So right here, like okay, there are some of them over here, but we may as well just kill this Zac off. Like, just because there's more of us around him here. So the thing you do here, you kind of decide that you're gonna go on Zac, and then you decide that you're gonna go over here, and then you decide to go back on Zac, and because you're just not making a decision about what you're doing, you're putting yourself in a position where you don't do anything. You see? We did get the cat out, but we could have got the Zac for it. Yeah, now we just die. Okay. So that was a really, really big loss. Now, one of the things here as well is there's also a huge wave in mid. So you could have also just ran. So just run straight up here instead of going down first. Right, so okay. Okay, so one thing here. Why did we instantly clear this wave? What were you doing here? What was the thought process?
him all these fiestas. That's
Okay.
why I don't freeze.
Okay, so that's even more of a reason for you to freeze. Because if your team are just doing random shit permanently, instead of trying to just hard force a wave out, like what are we going to get prio for here? A 15-minute herald, 16-minute herald? Like, that's going to be pointless for us. It's not going to do anything. Dragon's nowhere near spawning yet. It doesn't even have the 1-minute timer on it. So right here, we should just be accepting that we have a completely free freeze here and just hold the wave. By holding the wave here, we could just farm infinitely and deny them a whole wave of gold. A whole lane of gold, sorry. Same concept as when you say take an inhibitor and you kind of block that entire lane off of XP and gold. It's kind of the same there. So right here, like, we just freeze this wave and we just get scale. Like, indefinitely. Because the thing is here, it doesn't even matter if the wave isn't that stacked, because the fact that they've taken one of the towers means that their minions do more damage. So their minions actually have increased damage and increased resistances due to that tower being gone. Because now we've just rotated for, I mean, not much really. This, like, we didn't really even influence this fight. Meanwhile, there's golden XP being lost top, and Samira is actually farming bot lane. Okay, so we mispositioned really bad there. We walked into him for no reason. Okay. So here we were completely tunnel visioned on this side. You were contemplating jumping into this, right? Like the way you're moving, it seemed like you wanted to go for the Silas. No? Oh, okay.
I could kill him, actually.
I mean, you could, but you'd have to get in, use your exhaust instantly, and then stay out of his W range. So it would have been a very hard kill, and it was very risky. So here, I think we should have just backed out. Like, there's a reason he's staying there, you know? Like, there's no reason when you have the ability to just completely pop him, he'd stay there. If his jungler wasn't looking to do something, you know? So we kind of let him mind game us into dying here. And meanwhile, there's still all of this golden XP being lost in top lane. So one of the biggest problems is obviously us losing so much gold, but I want to see if we continue doing that later into the game. Especially at the 25-minute mark. Because games like this, you're looking for the 25-minute mark, and that's kind of where things go crazy. Now, why is 25 minutes so important?
You mean like generally, or?
Yeah, well, why is 25 minutes into any game of League really important?
Because of the 3 items?
No. As in, so it's a huge comeback mechanic. So how much gold do you get for the minion waves at 25 minutes?
You mean like cannon wave, or every cannon wave?
Yeah, at 25 minutes you have a cannon in every wave, which means waves go up to 195 gold on average. Now, because obviously that's a very large amount of gold on average per wave, it means that if you can force 2 waves into a tower, then you've basically just got more than a kill. So that's a huge comeback mechanic that sometimes you can utilize later on into the game. And it just comes down to kind of your side lane management. So here we have everything up and we don't use it. Right, so one of the things here, and this is, so do you prepare yourself before you go into a fight with everything that you have available? Do you, like, say it out loud, or do you think in your head, like, I have this, this, and this?
No.
Okay, so this is a really, really useful skill that you can kind of learn. So when you're walking up into this fight, what you want to say is, okay, so I have my R, my E, my exhaust, and my flash. So what you end up doing with that is you subconsciously plant that kind of seed in your mind that those are the things that you have available, so that when it actually comes to using them, you know you can instantly use them. Now, if you think that walking up to a fight, even with everything that you have, will not work out, then that's how you know not to actually go for that fight or not. Because if you can't actually win that fight even with everything, then it's bad. Now, one of the big things here is we start going in on the silence. This is actually fine, but we don't use our abilities properly. Now, one of the reasons why Kaisa is such a good champion is because her ult is a repositional tool. So it means that if you end up in these situations, a normal ADC would die, you're not going to. Because what you can just do here is ult behind him like that, and then all of a sudden you've got a set as a tank. Leona can jump over too, and then you're safe in this bottom kind of area. So you want to basically, if you end up in these kind of fights and you kind of realize, okay, this is a little bit risky, just use your ult to reposition. Even if you know, don't even really use the shield, if you reposition into a point where you have the advantageous ground, then you're going to win way more fights. So, yeah, and that's kind of one of the problems here. We don't kind of use anything, and then obviously we die. We still had ult and flash available, and we could have potentially turned this fight. Now, team fighting is one of them things that's always kind of awkward anyway, because in solo queue, even if you have the perfect team fighting comp, sometimes it doesn't matter if somebody doesn't press a button. So, it kind of, it can be awkward. Usually you want to kind of avoid team fights unless you're very, very strong. Or it's a very easy win. But, so now we're on 2 items. Okay. So we E'd first for attack speed there. So one thing that you could also do is save your E until after you've ulted. It just means you can take some very risky fights. But overall this was pretty solid. Okay. And this should be pretty easy to win. Oh, that's unlucky Q timing. Oh, yeah. Unfortunate. I don't think you actually had a window to E there, right? No, you didn't.
No.
That's just unfortunate. But, I mean, you did have a ton of gold. I mean, you gained a ton of gold, so it's okay. Oh, okay, so how come we went IE here?
What do you mean?
How come we went with IE at this point?
How we went, or
Yeah, why did we go IE here?
because it's really good against fast species.
Okay, but they also have a Zac, right?
Yes,
Who's gonna
yeah,
be...
But I got like much attack speed and Kraken.
I mean, you do, but the thing is, Lord Doms is incredibly gold valuable. Like, so
Yeah,
even
yeah.
without the passive, it's still, I think it's 116%, or something like that.
109, I guess.
Yeah, it's around about Lord Dominus.
It's really very efficient.
It's incredible, because the thing with the Kaisa as well is when you're facing them kind of big HP targets too, like that 15% bonus damage is massive. And then you also have your magic damage in your kit doing a lot anyway. But yeah, it's 106, well, 105%, yeah, without the unique. So I do admit that Kaisa is a champion that can go I here. But I personally think Lord Doms would have actually potentially give you more value. And then you could have just gone IE 5th item, and then you get the bonus from it anyway.
I want to go fourth item. I mean, Blood Dominix was on fourth item.
Well, what did you say, 4th item, sorry?
Blood Dominix. I want to go Blood Dominix on fourth item.
Okay, I'd say I'd say going at 3rd here would have been better.
I know.
3rd into 4th, yeah, I get what you mean.
My thinking again.
Okay, that's good. I mean, at least you're picking it up right. I know a lot of Kaisa players just believe that because at one point she used to shred tanks, she always will now. Doesn't really happen anymore due to the fact that new items mean that she can't as much, but... so the thing is, one thing you also want to look out for, you are actually marked as well. Yeah, you are. So this is going to be very risky for you because Zac has actually marked you, so you have to basically hold on to your ult now and use it to get away from his E pretty much every time. Okay, this is much better actually. Okay, so this was a much better ult. The problem was here, we kind of got hit by that pike. So obviously if we would have walked forward there, this would have been really good. There was a lot to dodge here and a lot to digest though, so I will admit that. But So like, yeah, I mean that's okay though. Like most of this team fight, you played really well. Okay. Okay. Okay, so this was, I mean, we're just way too kind of split.
Yeah.
We kind of
Yes,
went
man.
with the set.
We
So,
see three guys on minimap. I mean, five guys on minimap, and our team is not there.
yeah. But the thing is here as well, you also have waves that are getting lost top, bot, and mid. Now, the problem is here, there's a dragon spawning, so you need to try and get prio in as many lanes as possible. So this fight in general is really grief. Because they already have a wave here now, so if this fight goes wrong, they can actually lead this wave in, and Zac can just tank double towers. And they can just end the game off it. So going for the fight in general here, without clearing these waves first, is really, really bad. But maybe there was a bit of maybe tilt here, or
No.
no? Okay,
I don't.
okay, good. That's really good then. Like a lot of the times, you know, these games are very tilting. Don't get me wrong. Like
Yeah, I
it's
know, but
I know from
the
playing
minimap
them.
mindset.
That's good then. That's good. So, oh, this Katarina has got moves. But yeah, okay. So I think they do actually just end there, right? Yeah,
What? Set fleet.
yeah. So they did end. Yeah, okay. So yeah, so they managed to end here because we didn't control our waves properly. Now this looks cool and okay, unlucky. I thought you were gonna pop off, but either way. So yeah, so like here when we get into these mid to later stages of the game, especially around like I said at this point, our main concern needs to be these waves. Like the waves are the keys to everything, and one of the things with League is you have to kind of see it in a different way to kind of grasp it, but the it's very easy to presume that your champion is the main kind of piece in the game because that's what you control when it's not. You kind of want to more so see your champion as kind of a guardian for the minions. And if you start getting into this mindset of you're a guardian for the minions, you end up seeing the game in a different way and it becomes much easier in these kind of later game stages where you are no longer just focusing on getting kills and going for the objectives. You're focusing on making sure your waves are in good positions so that even if something does go bad, like a fight goes wrong, it's not really going to mean the end of the game, right? Because like right there, sorry, not here, this last fight, it was a case of this last fight meant the end of the game because of how the waves were. So yeah, that's from that one. So let's go on to the next one.